Hell in 21st century is called Yemen, a crisis never seen before in the modern history of humanity. A city stuck between folly and impasse started from control and power. On one hand, Saudi Arabia bombing its neighbor with no mercy. On the other, Iran stoking the fire, pushing the rebels not to lose its geostrategic position. And in between, 11 million civilians who are in danger of famine. What is Saudi monarchy looking for with all the bloodshed? Why did Iran support the revolt? What mysterious causes are hidden in this slaughter for no reason? Here today in Mystery and Politics.
In 2015, a coalition of 9 countries led by Saudi Arabia launched a multilateral attack on Yemen. Saudis attacked Yemen to fulfill the following goals: reestablishing the government of Mansur Hadi and eliminating the Houthi movement backed by Iran. After almost 4 years, not only have Saudis failed to achieve their goals, but also the war has led to the worst humanitarian crisis in the modern history of humanity.
A terrible tragedy is unfolding in Yemen, and it's getting worse. Millions of people are starving, sick, desperate. According to the United Nations, 14 million people, half the population of Yemen, could soon be on the brink of starvation. A statement released by the aid agency Save the Children unveiled that an estimated 85,000 children might have died of hunger since the beginning of the war. According to World Health Organization, there have been 1.2 million cases of suspected or confirmed cholera in Yemen since April 2017. The airstrikes and bombings has caused over $14 billion damage to infrastructure and economic losses in the poorest Arab world country.
So the political process, the talks that we will have, offers an alternative to the narrative of conflict.
Since the beginning of the war, United Nations has celebrated different rounds of talk to solve the problem in a political way, but none has had result till now. The Saudi coalition keeps bombing and Houthi movement won't give up. And in between, the Yemeni people keep suffering and hope for the return of peace.
This war needs to stop.
Yes, the war needs to stop. Hello and welcome to another edition of Mystery and Politics. We have with us today, through Skype, from Santiago in Chile, Mr. Pablo Jofre Real, who is an expert on Middle East affairs. Welcome to the show, Mr. Pablo. Thanks for joining us. Many years of war in Yemen, thousands of people dead, half the population on brink of famine. Who is responsible?
There is a very clear responsible party, and that is Yemen's neighbor, I mean Saudi Arabia, which is responsible for the tragedy in Yemen via military aggression. Yes, there are some internal discussions and problems in Yemen, which is normal, but without a doubt, the responsible party is the one who attacked Yemen and launched a military operation leading an international coalition to bomb that country and established a land, air, and sea blockade, which has resulted in a humanitarian crisis by which millions of people are displaced and thousands are dead. On top of that, it has destroyed that vast majority of its infrastructure. Yes, for all these tragedies and problems, we can blame Saudi Arabia and its allies, like the United States, who is looking for its own geostrategic interests in this part of the world.
Some experts say Iran is the bad boy and he doesn't want the war to end. Why?
Existe un chivo expiatorio, es un concepto respecto a buscar siempre un pretexto y una excusa para tratar
The
de
aggressor
justificar las
always
agresiones.
tries to find an excuse
Cuando
to
hablas de
justify its
Palestina,
crimes.
Israel suele
When it comes
utilizar
to
a Irán,
Palestine
al eje de la
issue,
resistencia a
Israel
Hezbollah.
always
Cuando se
talks
habla
about
de Yemen, se
Iran
habla de
and
Irán y
Hezbollah's
se
role.
habla de aquellos
And
poderes
again, when it
ajenos a
comes to
Oriente Medio
Yemen, they talk
para
about Iran
impedir la
and
paz.
some other countries which,
Irán,
according to them,
como
try to
cualquier
avoid
país,
a
como
peace
cualquier
agreement in
gobierno
Yemen.
que se le
Iran,
pueda
like any other
solicitar ayuda,
country,
la va a dar, como
when
ha sido el caso sirio, ¿no?
someone asks
Pero
them
aquí hay
to
claramente
help,
una excusa y un
tries to
pretexto
help,
para no
the
detener
same
una
as they
guerra,
did in
una guerra
Syrian
de agresión,
case.
una guerra destinada
But
a
in this
destruir al
case,
país y al mismo
you can
tiempo
see an
asesinar a su
excuse
población
not
bajo
to
el
stop a
pretexto
war
que Irán tiene
that has
intereses
led
en
to
la
a
zona.
full destruction of a
They say
country.
Yemen is a proxy war and not a civil war. But how much is Iran to be blamed? Can we just blame one country for this entire scenario and entire situation?
Respecto a la situación y a la culpabilidad o la responsabilidad
Regarding
de Irán,
Iranian role in Yemen's
indudablemente los
tragedy,
países tienen
I have to
intereses
say that
geoestratégicos en la
with no
zona
doubt
que
every
cohabitan con
country
otros
has
países.
its own
No tiene la
interests in the
Federación
region
Rusa y de
where
ahí
it's
su interés
located.
de avanzar hacia Occidente,
In this
porque al
case,
mismo tiempo
Iran
protege
has to
su zona
protect
fronteriza.
its
Es de
borders.
interés también para la República Islámica
You
de
have
Irán
to take into
proteger
the
sus fronteras.
consideration
Recuerda que
that
Irán está
Iran
rodeada
is
por
surrounded
países que
by
han sido
countries
agredidos y
which
que
have
tienen
been
presencia
attacked
militar extranjera desde
in the
hace más de
last
una década.
decades.
Afganistán, Irak,
I mean
desde el
Afghanistan
2011,
and
la
Iraq.
República Árabe Siria ha sido invadida,
Also, we have
agredida
to
por
name Syria,
movimientos
which
terroristas
has been
takfirí,
attacked
que han
since
sido avalados,
2011
organizados, que han
by
sido
terrorist
apoyados
groups
por Arabia
backed
Saudí,
by
por
Saudi
Israel, por
Arabia,
las monarquías del
Israel,
Golfo
and some
Pérsico,
other
por
monarchies in
Occidente.
Persian Gulf.
Sin duda, parte de la
So
sobrevivencia
it's
de
logical
una potencia
that a regional
regional no se
superpower
podría
like
hacer.
Iran
Lo que sí hay que hacer
equips
es decir cuán
some
justo,
groups to defend
cuán
its
verdadero
interest
y
against
cuáles
the
son los
enemies.
objetivos
That's
que
the way
persiguen
of
los
the
países
politics
en
of
ese
the world.
apoyo.
In
Y
my
a mí no me cabe
opinion,
duda que
what
apoyar a
Iran did
Siria
in supporting
ha
Syria
sido justo
and
y
Ansar Allah
necesario.
was a fair
Apoyar al
act.
movimiento popular en Yemen
It's
es
totally
justo
different
y es
from what
necesario.
other
Distinto es
countries
cuando tú
do to
apoyas a un
support
país
Israel,
ocupante como es
which has
Israel,
occupied
cuando es la
Palestine
entidad sionista la que
for
ocupa
more than
Palestina
7 decades.
desde hace 70 años.
Okay, Saudi can say the same thing. And Saudi can say that they're just defending and protecting the Yemeni government from the Houthi rebels.
Acuérdese usted que Abdul Rabu Mansur Hadi fue
You have to take into the consideration that Abu Mansur Hadi resigned from presidency and fled the country. So, what Saudi Arabia and its allies did by launching a military attack in 2015 was an attempt to re-establish a fugitive president and eliminate a popular movement that forced the president to leave the country. And also, you have to understand that Mansur Hadi asked for Saudi help from Saudi territories, not the Yemeni territories, which makes a huge difference from Syrian case. In Syrian case, we see a president elected by the people who never left the country and saved the nation from terrorists backed by
we
many
agree.
countries.
But such a tragedy, such a war, and US still keep selling arms to Saudi, and other European nations are also doing the same.
Hay una ley internacional que establece que se debe cesar
Exactly. According to the international law, you cannot sell weapons to a country which is involved in war. But here clearly you can see that law is violated because the military industry is a money-making machine. The first country that Donald Trump visited once he took office was Saudi Arabia, and he signed a $110 billion worth of arms deal with that country. At the same time, other monarchies of the region bought about $50 billion worth of arms from the United States. In addition to the United States, France, United Kingdom, and Spain, which claim defending human rights, keep selling weapons to Riyadh. Not only they don't sanction Saudi Arabia, but they sanction Yemen, and they don't try to stop the land, sea, and air blockade of Yemen. The reason that they don't sanction and punish Saudi Arabia is because Riyadh is their main arms customer.
Well, how do you see the perspective? How do you see the future of this war and what's next in this war?
I think the only way to put an end to Yemen's war is a political solution, the same as for the Syrian case. The negotiations must continue with the participation of Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Nations, as well as all those who have influence in that country. All the negotiations between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Houthi movement must be organized under the United Nations. This is the role of the United Nations, I mean the peacemaking. But to reach a peace agreement, the blockade, which is imposed by Saudis, not the Iranians by the way, must be lifted.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Pablo. That was Mr. Pablo Jofre Real from Santiago, Chile, and that's all for Yemen. We will be back next week with another crisis, and that's Venezuela.